K-movie, K-food, and even K-beauty. Korean cultural content is gaining more and more fans worldwide. It's indeed the golden age of K-culture. But with this growing interest comes an increase in misinformation about Korea. There's so much inaccurate information out there. Even AI can sometimes get it wrong. So, we must set things straight and correct all the misinformation. So here's the plan. The Voluntary Agency Network of Korea, VANK, and Arirang TV present the Get Korea Right project. Our goal is to provide accurate information on important keywords that come to mind when we think of Korea. Blatant errors and false claims that distort history. It's time to set the record straight, sharing the true history and culture of Korea while raising the national brand. Let's get started with Get Korea Right. Are you ready to join?
It's May 7th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with talks on unifying the conservative candidacy for the upcoming presidential election. People Power Party candidate Kim Moon-soo and independent candidate and former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will meet on Wednesday evening over the unification of the two candidacies. While the Democratic Party continues to pressure the Supreme Court to put all trials involving its candidate Lee Jae-myung on hold until after the June 3rd presidential election. A Czech court on Tuesday temporarily blocked the government from signing an $18 billion nuclear plant deal with South Korea until the courts handle a complaint from France's EDF, a losing bidder in the tender. The Czech Prime Minister expressed confidence in the government's selection process. The conclave to elect a new pope begins in Rome on Wednesday. The first votes will probably be taken on Wednesday afternoon, and 4 votes will be held each day until one candidate secures a 2/3 majority. Tensions are brewing within the conservative bloc over the unifying the candidacy between the People Power Party candidate Kim Moon-soo and former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. Now, meanwhile, the Democratic Party is battling on legal and campaign fronts. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
The People Power Party presidential candidate Kim Moon-soo and independent candidate Han Duck-soo will meet one-on-one at 6 p.m. on Wednesday to discuss a possible merger. This comes as Kim abruptly halted his campaign after tensions escalated between him and the PPP leadership, as Kim wants to take time and lead the merger process while the PPP leadership says there's no time with official candidate registration coming up. Kim also accused the party leaders of trying to oust him as their presidential nominee.
If this was the plan all along, I don't understand why we held 3 rounds of primaries. So as of now, I'm suspending all my activities as the party's candidate. I will be heading back to Seoul to seriously address the pressing issues that remain.
This comes as the PPP is set to hold its 3rd floor-wide meeting on Wednesday, a 3rd straight day. In Tuesday's meeting, the party's interim leader Kwon Young-se called for a survey of the PPP's registered supporters on whether they support a merger. All this without notifying Kim, one of the reasons why Kim had halted his campaign. As for ex-Prime Minister Han, he said he's not once thought about the merger falling through. He said that would be a betrayal of the citizens as he faced the media earlier on Tuesday. In the afternoon, he met with another former Prime Minister and presidential candidate Lee Na-kyun. Lee, despite being from DP, is in the anti-Lee Jae-myung camp and could lock arms with Han in this election on the premise of amending the constitution. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party of Korea appears to be fighting on 2 fronts in the presidential election as Lee Jae-myung meets voters and the party works to pressure the Supreme Court to delay all trials involving presidential candidates until after the June 3rd election. Following the court's decision to overturn an appeals ruling in Lee's election law case, he is now set to appear for a retrial hearing on May 15th. The DP accuses Chief Justice Cho Ide of political bias, speeding up the process and effectively convicting Lee despite the earlier acquittal.
He was effectively the planner and executor of political interference, election meddling, and a targeted trial. This amounts to grounds for impeachment.
As for the campaigning for Lee himself, he's set to visit 전라북도 province and 충청남도 province on Wednesday. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The final contract signing for the nuclear power plant deal between South Korea and the Czech Republic has been put on hold for now after a Czech court accepted an injunction request filed by a French energy company. Our Choi Soo-hyung has the details.
Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power's plan to build 2 new nuclear reactors in Dukovany, Czech Republic has been halted at the final stage. On Tuesday local time, a Czech court issued an injunction preventing KHNP and a Czech power company from signing the final contract. The court's decision came after French energy company EDF, which has lost the bid, filed a lawsuit. South Korean delegation led by the Industry Minister An Dok-gun heard the news mid-flight to the Czech Republic for the planned contract signing on Wednesday. The delegation is now expected to return home without signing the deal. The court said that if the contract goes ahead now, EDF would lose the chance to win the deal later, even if it wins its lawsuit. EDF has claimed that the bidding process was unfair, KHNP's price was unrealistic, and that government subsidies gave Korea an unfair advantage. In April, the Czech Republic's Office for the Protection of Competition rejected EDF's complaint. On Wednesday, KHNP said in a statement that it respects the court's decision while saying the entire bidding process was legal, fair, and transparent under the supervision of the Czech authorities. It also expressed deep regret over EDF's continued efforts to disrupt the results and said it would keep working with the Czech side to sign the final contract. Czech authorities said the bidding was fair and that they still see no problem with the final deal with KHNP. Czech's energy firm Seas Group is also considering an appeal against the court's latest decision. Last July, KHNP was selected as the preferred bidder, beating US-based Westinghouse and France's EDF based on its competitive price and ability to meet construction deadlines. Arirang News.
In a key phone call on Tuesday, Foreign Minister Cho and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening trade relations amid South Korea's uncertain political landscape. And Minister Cho stressed the importance of allowing ample time for trade negotiations, considering South Korea's presidential election, urging continued cooperation for mutually beneficial outcomes. Secretary Rubio reaffirmed America's unwavering commitment to extended deterrence and the strengthening of defense and economic ties under the Mutual Defense Treaty. With the 80th anniversary of Russia's Victory Day coming up later this week, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will not make it to the celebrations, Russia has confirmed. Now, instead, leaders from 29 countries, including China, will travel to Russia for the celebrations. Lee Seung-ja has more.
The Kremlin says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will not be attending Russia's celebration of Victory Day this week. According to reports from Moscow, Yuri Yushikov, the foreign policy advisor to President Putin, said that Pyongyang will instead be represented by its ambassador during the four-day celebrations. Yushikov also said that North Korean troops will also not take part in the annual military parade scheduled for Friday in Moscow's Red Square. Last week, Seoul spy agencies speculated that Kim would not travel to Russia for the Victory Day ceremonies, saying that there were no signs of security measures in preparation for a possible visit by the North's leader. Instead, the National Intelligence Service said other high-level officials could visit Moscow for the event. However, Chinese President Xi Jinping will be visiting Moscow for the 80th anniversary celebrations. According to the Kremlin on Sunday, Xi will be in Russia from Wednesday to Saturday to join the Russian president during these ceremonies. Russia's presidential office said the two leaders will sit down for talks during Xi's visit to discuss developing partnerships and strategic ties on issues on international and regional agendas. It added that government officials and ministers of both countries were expected to sign several bilateral agreements. Victory Day is a major holiday in Russia, commemorating the victory of the Soviet Union over Nazi Germany in 1945. There had been speculation that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would attend the celebrations this year amid growing military ties between the two countries. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The United Nations Security Council will hold a meeting on Wednesday local time to discuss North Korea's non-proliferation issues. The UN headquarters announced that the meeting will be held at the request of 7 member states, including South Korea, the U.S., and 5 other nations. It's expected to review North Korea's violation of UNSC resolutions and sanctions placed on the regime. The gathering also comes after the UN panel of experts on North Korea ended its term last year, with Russia, a permanent member of the UNSC, vetoing the extension of its term. The conclave to choose the next pope begins over in Rome on Wednesday local time. Who's likely to succeed Pope Francis? We are joined by Father James Britsky. Thank you so much for joining us, Father.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
So the coming conclave is expected to be the largest in history of the Catholic Church. As we all know, 133 cardinals coming from 70 countries set to gather in the Sistine Chapel. Why the record number of cardinals this time?
Well, the number of cardinals has grown over the years. Pope Paul VI, who died in 1978, had established a kind of a quota, a top limit of 120. But every pope since then went beyond it when he was naming new cardinals. Usually the cardinals will then age out at 80, and we haven't had a conclave over 120 until this one, and we're going to have 133.
Well, what's interesting about this whole conclave is that a new pope gets to choose a new name. Why the new name?
Well, the new name is kind of initial. It indicates a break from maybe his past, and it indicates a little spin control over what he wants to do in the future. Sometimes it will honor someone that was important in his life or a favorite saint. And in the more distant past, you used to have the custom of taking the name of the Pope that made you a cardinal.
So I have to ask, are any names off limits? I'm sure they can't be too creative with that, right?
Yes. Oh, so one name that by custom would be off limits would be the name of Peter, because he was the first pope. And the idea of taking that name would be a lot of hubris. Other names, if you just think of problematic names. Like I don't think we'll have a pope taking the name of Martin because of Lutheranism, Martin Luther. That would seem to be, a bit dicey. And certainly you wouldn't take a notorious name like, you're not going to find a Pope Adolf.
Right.
But you could have any number of other names.
So you really can't tell what the new pope's new name is going to be, right?
Well, you can't tell. The betters will say possibilities would be John Paul III, Benedict XVII, those are two previous ones. Possibly a Pope Francis II, although I doubt that. Or maybe someone like John the 24th, because when I was a little kid, John the 23rd was the surprise candidate. He was very much loved. And so maybe you want to reclaim that kind of charisma, and you would name yourself John the 24th.
Well, what kind of pope and leadership then do you think, Father, the world is in need of at the moment?
Well, I think what the world needs is an improbable, if not an impossible pope. So you want someone that has charisma. So if you think of, for example, in Korea, you think of the late Cardinal Stephen Kim Soo-won. He was a man who was a great leader, very charismatic. If you could have a world leader like Kim Soo-won, that would be awesome. Then you want someone that's pastoral. You want someone that can be a good administrator. You want someone that knows how to run the Vatican bureaucracy. And you want someone that speaks clearly on doctrinal matters, but also sympathetically. And that's going to be very hard to roll all of those characteristics into any living human being.
Well, I'm sure we have one out of the 133 cardinals to be the next pope. Father, then I know even the cardinals don't know who is going to be the next pope, but who will be the next pope? Who are the top candidates?
So if you go on the news and you find, you get this news service or that news service, top 10 people, there will be some overlap among those, and then there will be different ones. So the overlap, the ones that are on most lists would be the current Secretary of State, Cardinal Parolin, who is Italian. Others are Cardinal Pizzaballa, who is Italian, but is the Archbishop of Jerusalem. Cardinal Zuppi, who is the Archbishop of Bologna. Those are on pretty much every list. Then we also have on many lists Cardinal Chito Tagle from the Philippines. So he would be the first Asian Pope. And then maybe a couple of Africans are on the list and a couple of Europeans. A sort of center-right candidate would be Cardinal Peter Erdo from Hungary.
Well, it took 2 days to elect Pope Francis back in 2013. Let's see how long it takes this time. Thank you, Father, so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Growers of fruits such as strawberries used to face problems in selling them overseas because they tended to spoil and decay easily. The Rural Development Administration, however, introduced a technique that maintained their freshness. Cha Young reports.
Since 2021, the Rural Development Administration has used a controlled atmosphere technique to maintain strawberries' freshness for export markets. The technique does this and delays spoiling and decay by removing oxygen while increasing levels of other preservative gases. Introducing the CA technique allowed growers to increase their shipments and also use container ships for exports as opposed to just air transport. This saved distribution costs of up to 16 billion Korean won. The simultaneous complex management technique removes air from containers and introduces carbon and chlorine dioxides. The former gives strawberries a firmer texture, while the latter prevents mold infestation. This decreases decay of the strawberries by up to 20%.
We can deliver high-quality products, and we can send as much as we can, since the technique can maintain the freshness of the fruit.
The RDA spread the related technology to 16 export centers for strawberries as overseas shipments increased massively due to the introduction of the technology. The amount rose fivefold from 2007's 986 tons to 5,012 tons in 2024.
We received a great response from importers and consumers, with strawberries being sold out within 4 days at markets they are shipped to.
The RDA is continuing to integrate management models to systemize the exports of strawberries. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Now, let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Choi Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tammy.
So, Ji-hee, let's begin with the ongoing tensions between India and Pakistan. Now, India has conducted missile attacks against Pakistan. Could you give us the details?
Sure. In retaliation for a recent attack by militants in Kashmir, India conducted missile strikes on 9 sites within Pakistan. On Tuesday local time, the Indian Armed Forces initiated Operation Sindoor, targeting 9 locations in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The strikes were aimed at terrorist infrastructure linked to the April 22nd Pahalgam attack, which India attributes to Pakistan-based militants. The Indian government described the operation as focused, measured, and non-escalatory in nature, with no Pakistani military facilities targeted. Pakistan reported that the missile strikes resulted in the deaths of at least 8 civilians and injured dozens of others. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif condemned the attacks as a shameful and cowardly attack and promised to respond with force. Pakistani security and government sources have also claimed that at least 5 Indian Air Force aircraft have been shot down. The region remains on high alert, with both nations' militaries mobilized and diplomatic ties further strained. Moving to the Middle East, Israel has launched airstrikes on Yemen's capital, Sana'a, targeting multiple sites, including the main airport, in retaliation for a recent missile attack by Houthi rebels near Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport on Sunday. On Tuesday local time, Israeli warplanes conducted a series of airstrikes on Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen. The Israel Defense Forces reported that the operation fully disabled Sana'a International Airport. The strike also targeted power stations and a concrete factory believed to be used for military purposes. The airstrikes were a direct response to a ballistic missile launched by the Iranian-backed Houthi group, which landed near Israel's Ben Gurion airport on May 4th, the first time a Houthi missile had reached the vicinity of Israel's main international airport. The Israeli strikes resulted in at least 3 deaths and 35 others wounded. This marks the second straight day of Israeli airstrikes in Yemen, following previous attacks on the Red Sea port city of Hodeidah on Monday. In Germany, Friedrich Merz officially became the country's chancellor on May 6th after securing a majority in a second parliamentary vote following an unprecedented defeat in the first one. In the initial round, Merz fell short by 6 votes, marking the first such occurrence in post-war German history. In the second round of votes, Merz secured 325 out of 630 ballots, enabling him to lead a coalition government of his center-right Christian Democratic Union and the Christian Social Union Alliance and the center-left Social Democratic Party. Merz, who won an election in February, was then finally approved as chancellor by the Bundestag president. In the United States, the Supreme Court on Tuesday permitted the Trump administration to enforce its ban on transgender individuals serving in the military. The 6-3 decision, issued without a detailed explanation, lifted a lower court injunction that had blocked the policy that allowed the Department of Defense to discharge current transgender service members and deny enlistment to new applicants. This stems from President Donald Trump's executive order issued in January, asserting that gender identity differing from biological sex undermined military cohesion.
Back to our routines today after a long weekend, and we're greeted with some beautiful sunshine across the country. Well, we are in for a warmer day, but again, we're looking at a pretty significant daily temperature swing across the country, around 15 degrees Celsius in many parts of Korea. And along with clear skies, strong UV rays will shine down during the warmest parts of the day. And southern regions will have higher UV levels during the day. Make sure to have your sunglasses and sun hats ready. Daily highs will be slightly lower than season norms this afternoon, Seoul topping out at 20 degrees. Chuncheon, Daejeon will be warmer at 22 degrees. And we can look forward to clean air quality nationwide. And tomorrow, Parents' Day will bring even warmer temperatures under mostly sunny skies. However, get ready for a change on Friday. We're expecting rain across the country. It could be quite lively in the southern regions with strong winds and thunder. Rain could linger through Saturday morning in central parts of Korea.
That is all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
제21대 대통령 재외선거.
세계 어느 곳에 있어도
내가 국가대표라는 마음으로
누구보다 땀 흘리죠. 지금이 국가대표임을
보여줄 기회.
대한민국 국민의 권리.
대한민국 국민의 의무.
반드시
투표합니다. 국가를 위한 대통령 투표. 제21대 대통령 재외선거. 중앙선거관리위원회.
2025 celebrates the 80th anniversary of liberation. A place filled with culture, history, and diverse experiences. This is the Independence Hall of Korea. values of the independence movement. And together with the whole nation, we will make Korea great. The Independence Hall of Korea.
제주 영어 교육 도시의 중심 NLCS 제주에서 세계 명문대 출신 엘리트 교사진과 해외 커리큘럼으로 전 세계 상위 1%의 학사 성과를 달성하고 있으며 졸업생들은 세계 최정상급 대학으로 진학하고 있습니다. 전인적인 성장과 함께 꿈을 찾아가는 특별한 교육의 가치. 글로벌 동문 네트워크로 계속됩니다. NLCS 제주가 명문대 진학의 길을 열어갑니다.
Bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Wednesday, May 7th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and welcome back to News Generation. Joining us today is Park Ki-yoon.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, and Lee Won-bin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to begin our show today with our keyword news. Our keyword for today is Squid Game. With less than 2 months to go before its release, the highly anticipated final season of Squid Game released its teaser and poster on Tuesday. Under the title, The Final Game with prize money of 45.6 billion won begins, the teaser posted on Netflix's official YouTube channel had already racked up more than 1 million views by this morning. In the 85-second clip, we see the return of the pink guards entering the players' living quarters with coffins. Now, one coffin contains the protagonist Song Gi-hoon, played by actor Lee Jung-jae, lying motionless and bleeding. So I want to ask our panelists, what did you make of this teaser? Were there any moments that really stood out to you? And what are you hoping for in the final season of this Netflix hit?
Well, it's a teaser, so the teaser was very vague. It didn't have any specific informations or any leads, but there were a few guesses that we can make about what's going to happen. For example, the upcoming games, but there was nothing specific, and I want to avoid spoilers for our viewers, so I won't do a deep dive into it. And personally, I'm just really touched by the fact that there will be now 3 seasons of Squid Game, because Squid Game, it's very historical and unprecedented for a TV series from Korea to be a global hit for 3 multiple seasons. And what I especially like about Squid Game is that unlike other TV series or dramas, they did a really good job at like implementing and displaying these traditional Korean culture, and it was a very new, fresh thing for most viewers. So I'm very happy that now there will be 3 seasons for everyone in the world to see that. And at this point, I just expect that they will tie a good knot at the end. They'll have a good ending, not an anticlimax that falls like a stick. So as long as they do that, I'll be very happy and satisfied.
And maybe they could introduce some new, fun Korean traditional games that international viewers didn't know before.
Absolutely.
And Kyun, you watched both seasons of Squid Game, so I also want to ask your take on the teaser this time.
Right, like what Wonbin just said, the teaser didn't show too many new details, but I'm sure that global viewers from all around the world are anticipating a better final season compared to season 2. Now, season 1 was a mega hit, so naturally everyone kind of expected a better season 2, but personally I didn't find it to match my, I guess, like the first season sensation.
I think many people felt that way.
I think most people felt that way as well. But the acting was incredible. The fact that we were able to see Kong Yu play the villain, which is not something you see every day.
Right.
And his acting was incredible. That was a big, pleasant surprise. And I'm hoping that this season comes up with like a famous line that we saw in season 2.
Which was?
The one that Song Gi-yoon did when he was playing the game. He said, I saw a lot of people doing that, and it went viral. So I want to see another famous line, or even a scene, or even a character from season 3 that's as like sensational as the one from season 2. And let's go Song Gi-yoon and Park Gi-yoon.
Oh, okay, what a ride.
And
let's go Squid Game. And meanwhile, season 3 of Squid Game, which wraps up the Netflix hit series, once again is officially set to premiere on at the end of June. And that was our keyword news for this Wednesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Wednesday is when we turn our focus to issues impacting the lives of young people around the world. Take a look at the screen to find out more on today's topic. Over the past few months, significant changes in U.S. immigration policy following President Donald Trump's return to the White House have brought uncertainty to many international students. Reports indicate that the U.S. government has revoked or is reviewing the visas of numerous foreign students. This has raised questions about the stability and predictability of studying in the United States. So this is a topic that's causing widespread concern among international students in the United States, including many Koreans studying abroad. I remember we briefly talked about this topic when Trump started his second term in office. So we're first going to begin by breaking down what exactly is happening and why.
Yep. So since March, the U.S. government has abruptly begun revoking student visas, causing significant difficulties for many international students, including Korean students. As of April 24th, more than 1,800 plus international students and recent graduates have had their legal status changed by the State Department. And these are ranging from private universities such as Harvard and Stanford to large public institutions such as University of Maryland and Ohio State University. This development stems from the Trump administration's intensified crackdown on foreign students and academic staff, citing efforts to eliminate anti-Semitism on college campuses and curb illegal immigration. The administration claims that visa cancellations target individuals who are deemed to act against U.S. national interest. However, according to local media, aside from a few high-profile cases, many affected students have no idea why their visas were revoked without any explanation. And some observers argue that this may be politically motivated. As the Trump administration struggles to show tangible results after 100 days in office in its campaign to pledge to deport illegal immigrants, it appears to be targeting international students who are seen as an easier group to act against.
And this news on visa revoking of international students has been making headlines in the United States, and students were really quick to respond. So I want to ask you, Wonbin, how have been students reacting to this visa disruption? What kinds of responses have we been seeing?
Well, many students were definitely caught off guard completely. And surprisingly, they did respond with a strong pushback. Some of them even took legal actions, filing lawsuits that argued the U.S. government violated the process by suddenly canceling their visas without any prior warnings. And they said that it wasn't just unfair, but it was also unlawful as well, especially for students who have been studying in the States for years or even a decade. And their main demand was for the decision to be reversed and for their visa status and student records to be fully restored.
Right.
And after days of pressure and global criticism growing, the U.S. government eventually did back down a little bit, and they agreed to undo the visa cancellations and recover the data of those affected. And this moment really highlighted how quickly international students can come together, raise their voices, and push back when something this serious threatens their future and their career.
And I want to add on to what Wonbin just mentioned. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, it has already restored or plans to restore the legal visa status for hundreds of students through the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. Now, for those unfamiliar, this is a system that tracks international students' records, and if a student is no longer listed on the system, they may be forced to leave the country. While some students are now seeing temporary relief, however, many are still facing uncertainty, stress, and fear. So, Kyun, I want to ask you specifically in terms of Koreans currently living in the United States, and for example, Korean students, how are they reacting to this?
So Korean international students make up the third largest group of foreign students in the United States.
Right.
So look at the screen for more details. India ranks first in the number of international students in the U.S. universities, followed by China, then South Korea with approximately 43,000 students registered. Now, this sizable presence has been reflected in the surge of emergency calls received by Korean support organizations from students whose visas were abruptly cancelled. And in one case, a Korean-American student enrolled at Columbia University was reportedly marked for deportation simply for participating in a campus protest against the war in Gaza. Now, despite not taking on a leading role in the demonstration nor appearing in the media, the student suddenly found himself at risk of deportation overnight.
Wow. But it's not just students who have been affected. I heard that other professionals, Korean professionals working in the States, have also encountered similar situations, right?
Right. So it's not only the students that are being affected, it's hitting Korean professionals as well. To give an illustration, back in May, a Korean assistant professor at the University of Houston was suddenly forced to return to Korea in the middle of the semester, which is shocking. And his visa was canceled without warning, like we mentioned. And the university said that it happened because he had enrolled in a PhD program at another institution, which affected his student visa status. The story quickly spread, and the school's social media page was filled with comments from shocked students. And most people did agree that it's very unfair, especially since the professor has been actively teaching during the semester. And cases like this are making Korean students more feel anxious and worried about their future. And even those whose records have been restored with, even those who where their visa recorded have been restored, they're still dealing with a lot of stress and pressure because of these kind of news where uncertainties where they get canceled again.
Right.
So a lot of people are being really affected beyond just students as well.
This is definitely a great concern for those living in the States. Now, to hear firsthand what it's like to be in the middle of all this situation, we'll soon be joined by a Korean student who is currently studying in the U.S. We'll be right back.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Korean millennial Kim Youngbin. Youngbin is a doctoral student currently studying in the United States. Welcome back to the show, Youngbin.
Hello, thank you for inviting me to this interview.
Thank you for joining our show once again. So Youngbin, we'd first like to start off by asking, do you know any students who've been directly impacted by the Trump administration's visa cancellation move?
Well, according to several news reports, around 100 international students in California, where I live now, have had their visas canceled. At my university specifically, I've heard of 4 confirmed cases, which were also mentioned in a local news coverage. I don't personally know any of the students, but one of them is a friend of a friend. Based on what I've heard, one student lost their visa due to a DUI from a few years ago, and another was allegedly involved in organizing a protest on campus.
Youngbin, thank you for sharing. How would you describe the overall mood among international students right now? And are there fear and confusion widespread?
Yeah, I would say there is definitely a lot of concern and confusion going around. Recently, I had a long conversation with a group of international students, and many of us were feeling pretty anxious. While the Secretary of State has stated that the student visa cancellations are only targeting individuals with criminal convictions or tied to terrorist activity, I think the way things are actually being handled feels a bit unclear. There have been reports that various records of international students, such as IRS tax filings, past police encounters, and even social media activity are being reviewed, which makes it hard to know exactly what could trigger a problem. I want to believe that things have calmed down a bit since late April, but I think that lingering uncertainty is still very much present for a lot of us here.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing the atmosphere of the front line of what's happening right now. Now, with news that some students' visas are being reinstated, do you think that's helping to ease the situation, or is the uncertainty still very present?
So, yeah, I also read that at one nearby university in California, 13 students initially had their visas canceled and 6 of those were reinstated. I've also heard that several lawsuits are in progress, which shows that people are actively working through this issue. That said, I think many international students would feel more relaxed if the process and the criteria were clearer. Personally, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to study in the U.S., and I don't take that for granted. But I do think that having more transparency around visa policies would really help us to stay focused on what we came here to do, study and do research and contribute to society, either it is home country or in the U.S.
Absolutely. All right, Youngbin, thank you so much for sharing your experience today, and we hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Right, so we're now going to expand our discussion. So from both the students' perspective and the U.S. government's viewpoint, this issue is carrying a lot of weight. So why do you think this situation matters on such a high level?
Well, from the perspective of international students, this comes as a bolt from the blue. It means the collapse of their academic careers and a derailment of carefully laid plans. And having invested significant time and financial resources into their studies, this impact is nothing short of devastating. And just like what Youngbin mentioned, it's causing so much confusion among the international student communities, and they're having to kind of look at plan B or plan C of going back to their home country and changing their career paths, which is very devastating. I mean, the reason for them studying abroad is for their career future, career path, to change their, it's for their careers, you know, for their futures, and they're there to just study and live a better life to help their home country and the country they're studying at. So I think the government needs to really come up with a more transparent and clear and fast, effective countermeasures to really ease this pressure.
I mean, especially when you are studying or living in a foreign country, there's already a lot of uncertainty. But if your visa is at the brink of getting canceled, then I can't imagine what kind of uncertainty they'll be going through. Then what about from the perspective of the U.S. government or United States?
Well, from the U.S. government's viewpoint, international students actually play a big role in the community and the economy as well. And they're not just an additional income source for schools in the States. They're not just studying, but they're also boosting the country's research power and keep universities competitive on a global level. And so if the U.S. government keeps canceling visas without any clear warnings or messages, it could, and it most likely will, backfire. Talented students might just start looking somewhere else to study, and this means that the U.S. will lose out on brain power, innovation, and even money in the long run. And we all know losing money is what President Trump hates the most. So yeah, it's definitely in the best interest of the U.S. government to keep these current international students within their country.
Right, and I totally agree with you because having talented international students and a talented pool of people, it's a big benefit for the country as well, the United States.
Right.
So this could be a big loss potentially, not only for the students, but for the United States as well. So ending off, you both studied and lived abroad for quite a long time. So I think that this issue would hit home for you a lot. So ending our discussion today, what are your reflections on this issue after today's discussion?
Well, it's sad to see in this day and age this kind of unfair action taken against students, especially in the U.S., where we see the country as a very developed country and seeing many international students actually go to the U.S. to study. And I think for these international students, they pay a lot of money, not only to the universities and the country, but they put their most important academic years on the line that could actually make or break their careers in a foreign country. And like you mentioned, it's not easy living in a foreign country as a student. Like there's so much pressure. Everything's very unfamiliar to you. And you're there to just study, focus on your studies. But
you have other things to think about.
You have a new president, and all of a sudden he changes all these,
your life.
like changing the visas and then revoking it again, and it's causing so much confusion to these students. And I heard that some of these students who are actually planning to go to study in the U.S. have changed their minds and just chose to stay in their own countries and navigating through what good universities their country have. And I'm sure even South Korea, we have a lot of prestigious universities. So this in turn can be actually an opportunity for other international students who actually plan to go to the US in the first place to actually navigate through other countries, look for different options. Like, there are great universities in Europe, including like the UK and even in Australia, and of course South Korea and Japan and everywhere else. So I think for the US, this could be a big blow in the long term because they're losing a lot of great talent, researchers that are needed for countries to foster in the long run. So I think students, I'm sure students like Youngbin, they're having a hard time right now, but hopefully their confusion gets solved very soon.
Right, this issue could definitely have a huge ripple effect. Now, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, as someone who studied as a student in Canada before getting permanent residence, it's definitely something really difficult to imagine. Because when I was in school in 2017, visa, like everyone just mentioned, visa was like the last thing that I had to worry about. Like once you get your visa approved, the visa is yours. And it's going to be yours. Like, unless you do anything criminal or anything against the law, you're basically keeping it and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And as an international student, I just want to emphasize one more time, there's a lot of things to consider while studying abroad, such as housing, finances, all the additional paperwork, not to mention the translation and the certification that you have to do of those paperwork.
Right.
And on top of everything that I just mentioned, having uncertainties about the visa, while you're studying, it'll be a big demerit as a country to study. So it'll be a really big disadvantage for U.S. to gather students to study. And studying abroad, it's a very big, irreversible commitment to move to another country and basically live there and study.
It could be a life-changing decision.
Yes, exactly. And furthermore, for people who lived with a visa, people who has a visa, did all the necessary legal paperwork and to legally stay in Korea, in the country, which is the whole point of the visa, and allowing them to stay in the country without any worries or any concerns feels like common sense to me. And I think canceling their visas or taking it away from them without any warning, it sounds like a bit of a stretch for me. So I hope this situation gets resolved ASAP.
Right, fingers crossed. And that's all we have for this edition of News Generation, but we will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Park Ki-yoon.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And Lee Bin.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow on Thursday. We are News Generation.
제주 영어 교육 도시의 중심 NACS 제주에서 세계 명문대 출신 엘리트 교사진과 해외 커리큘럼으로 전 세계 상위 1%의 학사 성과를 달성하고 있으며 졸업생들은 세계 최정상급 대학으로 진학하고 있습니다. 전인적인 성장과 함께 꿈을 찾아가는 특별한 교육의 가치. 글로벌 동문 네트워크로 계속됩니다. NLCS 제주가 명문대 진학의 길을 열어갑니다.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your clothes. Put your jacket in the plastic bag. Seal it tight. If the stool flips open, store your clothes inside. Wearing light colors? Grab an apron. It's the